Star Wars fans and Rule the Galaxy fans. Welcome back to chapter 142. It's hard for me to imagine that I'm saying that. Chapter 142 of the Rule the Galaxy podcast. And while my regular co-hosts, some will be hopping on later, some won't be, we've got two great special guests today. And I'll just throw out their quick bios. We've got Mr. Stephen Kent, who I found out about from the podcast Beltway Banthas, but who is the author of How the Force Can Fix the World. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that book cover in Scott Ryfun's little area there.
Endorsed by radio maven Scott Ryfun.
Yes, and since we brought the man up, Scott Ryfun, you know, iHeartMedia, he's all over the place. The most listened to man in South Georgia radio. And he ran the podcast My Star Wars Story, which is the way I found out about Mr. Scott Ryfun. So, gentlemen, we're here. It's the podcast you've been waiting for, and we're going to talk a little Star Wars tonight. I'll start with you, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good, but Scott looks confused.
Well, he referred to My Star Wars Story in the past tense, and so now it got me thinking, I guess I got to get on the stick.
It has been a while, Scott.
Beltway Banthas is past tense. That show's gone dormant. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next for Star Wars podcasting. I'm kind of in between projects.
Do an episode of My Star Wars Story with me, and then you can figure it out.
I would love
I'll give you that,
I would love that. I forgot the original question though, but doing great. The Force is strong. It's been just such an exciting few weeks. Star Wars in my veins.
It has been great. And we, this is your second time with us. So thank you again. And we loved talking about your book the first time you were on. But tonight we can talk a little about your book, but we can also, tell us how it's going, the sales, all that kind of stuff, because I really enjoyed it. Scott looks like he enjoyed it. But also we're just going to talk a little bit of everything related to all the things going on in Star Wars. I mean, we just had Celebration. We now have Kenobi. There's tons to talk about. So looking forward to having you here. Mr. Ryfun, how are you doing?
I am incredible. I'm always incredible. What are you talking about? Just fantastic. And most listened to man in South Georgia radio. I expanded my horizons week before last, hosted in Savannah for the morning for a little bit. So, the empire's growing.
I've been to Savannah. It's a nice little town.
It's a wonderful little town. It's, bigger than my town. So it was nice.
Good. Well, Brent was going to be here tonight. Brent, we miss you. We'll have you back next week. He was going to talk about Indy PopCon because Indy PopCon was just this last week in Indianapolis. And he went. He actually attended, and he was telling people how to play Star Wars Legion. But I'll save all that for next week when he comes back and is part of the show. And next week we will have Miss Jessica, the Duchess of Darksaber Light, will be hosting. And the first Okairo from just Twitter and YouTube will be our main special guest next week with her hosting the show. So we're looking forward to that one. I guess I will just kind of do it this way because I have, as you saw before we started, my handy dandy notebook with all kinds of topics. Is there a topic, Scott or Stephen, that from Celebration or from Kenobi or anything else Star Wars related you guys want to start that's really hit you and you want to start with? Is there anything that's standing out?
Oh, well, Scott and I really hate talking about politics and and how socioeconomic divides happen when it comes to pop culture, which is definitely not in the discourse right now around Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No,
not at all. But I will just go ahead and just go to the fun subjects. Andor, that teaser trailer that they dropped at Celebration really just hit me right where I love my Star Wars. So, between episodes 3 and 4 is rapidly becoming my favorite period. It is fresh autocracy right out of the oven. The entire galaxy is still getting used to what the Empire is like, what their capabilities are, how far they're willing to go. And you're seeing the budding, obviously seeds of rebellion. So I loved Star Wars Rebels. Obi-Wan Kenobi is in this period. And then we're going to, of course, we had Rogue One and now Andor. So the making of a radical, that's what I'm all about. I love that kind of story. So just the idea that we're going to see Mon Mothma still in the Senate, still operating as a imperial senator and thinking, maybe the system can still work. Maybe good things can still happen. And then eventually she's going to realize this is absurd and she must, defect. I'm here for that. So I'm probably excited most about Andor over anything on the slate.
And I will say, from looking at it, looks like it's going to start in August of this year, from what I was reading.
That's like tomorrow.
I know. We'll press fast forward and it'll be August. I'm hearing,
hit 50, Steven. It'll really be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that the first season is going to be 12 episodes, kind of the growing up stage of Andor, getting to where he's not a rebel yet. He's not a conspirator. He is just what's growing him into that role in the first season. But am I hearing this right, Scott? Are we seeing kind of a dual show with a lot of Mon Mothma and her growth into that role and a lot of Andor growing into that role at the same time?
That certainly seems to be the way they're framing it anyway. But I think, as we all know from the Kenobi trailers, they can frame things one way and they don't turn out that way. In fact, sometimes that's a little bit of, as the magicians say, misdirection.
100%. I've found that there's been a lot of misdirection in all Star Wars, but the funny meme before Kenobi was, gosh, wasn't the Book of Boba Fett supposed to be all about Boba Fett? And people were like, don't say that before we go into Kenobi. And now people are saying, I thought Kenobi was going to be all about Kenobi. And we're seeing a lot of other storylines wrapped into this as well.
It's a big galaxy. I think these series are, at this point, they are telling us time and place more than they're telling us character focus, because there are just so many gosh darn characters crossing paths at any given time in the galaxy. I just, at this point, we need to embrace the idea that like an Andor show is giving us a basic premise around which this story will evolve, but there are going to be a bunch of intersecting threads. And so we're going to see, to understand how he falls in league with Mon Mothma and becomes her go-to guy for wet work, which is essentially what he is in Rogue One. He does the hits. We first have to see how Mon Mothma becomes the person who gives him the dirty work to do. It's gonna focus on a lot of things. I think I'm just always excited to see like different cultures throughout the galaxy and how they're affected by the Empire, because particularly Andor's family, the only thing that we know about them is that they were separatists. So they were always opposed to the Republic. So the Empire is really no different. It's just a continuation. So it probably won't take much to radicalize this guy. I'm just curious what pushes him to really be involved.
And let me jump off on something Stephen is talking about with the regards to, all of these other characters and all these other storylines they're throwing in. You're doing TV, which is bigger. I mean, Kenobi, even though today's episode was short, it's still hours and hours and hours of TV. If you just want to focus on Kenobi and one or two other characters, then make a movie. But they're not. And I honestly, I don't know if you've noticed this over the years. Surely you have, but the public taste for larger, more complex, more dense stories has grown over years and years and years. I mean, if you go back and look at Star Trek, great example, the original Star Trek series, every episode just about is a one and done. And the next week, there is almost no reference to what happened the week before. They could show them in just about any order, and it doesn't matter. And then you come up into this century, and all of a sudden you've got 24 where you've got to watch every single episode in sequence or else. And, we just have a taste for bigger, sprawling, more interwoven tapestries, which I think is great. I mean, that's the kind of storytelling I've always liked. It's one of the reasons I was such a fan of the EU. Between us, and I've said this before, 80% of the EU books were crap, but I loved that giant tapestry. And I think there's another reason to introduce these other characters is that old saw of, we know how our main character is going to try. We know where Obi-Wan's going to end up by the time it's all said and done. But what about all these other guys? And where did they go by the time we get to see Obi-Wan again? What happened there? So, I mean, there are reasons for all of that, and they're good storytelling reasons for all of it. So I like it. I like big stories. I like that Star Wars has chosen as its kind of main venue to not give me 2 hours every, 2 hours every year or two, but instead give me 6 hours every 6 months.
Right. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bad Batch, which I didn't particularly love the first time I watched it, but the second time through, I grew to think, okay, this is a better story than what I thought it was, going to be. But the main complaint for Bad Batch, if I'm not mistaken, was, well, gosh, these are the weekly adventure, and then it's on to the next weekly adventure, and it's on to the next. And here we have Kenobi, which I have a feeling we're going to do the same thing with Andor to go back to Steven's lead in on this. And it's going to be that tapestry, like you mentioned. It's going to be woven over 6, 12, whatever episodes. And I think it's going to be a richer story because of that. And people should enjoy it more.
And it's just one of the reasons that I have very little patience for kind of fandom outrage at the outset of a show. We haven't seen where this goes yet. Like we don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, and this kind of goes again to the criticism side of things. I spend some times in fandom Facebook groups, and there's just all this hand wringing and talk about, Obi-Wan's weakness and like, why'd they make him a wimp? And I was just like, guys, we got to get to the part where he rediscovers his strength to become the person we know that he's going to be. He's
got to have an arc.
Yeah. Like, what did you think this was going to be? And I just love that we have time to let things breathe. I will say, like, and my 11-year-old called me out on this today, because I finished episode 4 of Obi-Wan, and I was like, I think it's time to go back to Tatooine now. Like this little field trip has been good, but it's starting to feel prolonged. I was expecting a little bit more soul searching in Solitude. And she was like, well, what did you think it was going to be like? One episode he meditates, one episode he writes a song, one episode he breaks out of the cave and goes to do open mic in Mos Eisley. Like, I was like, oh, okay, you just burned me. Yeah. I mean, like, there was always going to be a quest. So
well, and that's part of that bait and switch they did, we were talking about earlier, where they set it up as, hey, he's watching Luke and it's going to be about his watching Luke, and instead they decided we've got to open this up in movie talk. You know what that means? It means more than just one setting. And there's only one thing that makes sense for that to happen, and that is something has to happen to Leia. So you bring Leia into it.
The only other valuable piece that he would walk away from Luke Clark.
Only reason he would leave Tatooine at this point. And so, and I think they did that well. Now, look, and fandom rage and all that. I don't tend to rage. I tend to observe. I'm not a fan of the premise of Vader and Obi-Wan going at it. I wasn't a fan of that premise last week. I'm not but at the same time, what I've decided is I'm going to go on the journey they're taking me on. And when it's over, I'll decide if it was worth it. Because if they can show me something different, if they can show me something interesting, if they can show me something revelatory and make it feel right, then I'm going to go with it. Although, again, I object from the outset.
Yeah, I object from the outset as well. It's just one of those things that it doesn't quite make sense, and you've really got to make the payoff worth it. But I believe that the people who make Star Wars love these stories. Like I've never bought into this YouTube headline criticism that, the makers of the stories hate these people and hate these heroes and hate these films and want to undermine them. I just don't believe that. And I believe that all of these people, they view the clash of Obi-Wan and Vader in episode 4 as something of a sacred conflict, and that they would want to make sure that this is done right. So I'm going to wait till episode 6 of Obi-Wan to see if they kind of tie this thing up in a way that I could have never foreseen. And then I'll judge.
There we go. Exactly. I'll cross my fingers for that as well. While we were going down that path, Mr. DDoc joined us. DDoc, how you doing, brother?
DDoc.
I'm doing good. I actually just finished the episode like 10 minutes ago, so I'm fresh.
Very fresh.
Yeah,
Super
the kids
fresh.
I had t-ball practice and all that fun stuff, and then I finally got home. I didn't wake up early enough to watch it, so I stayed off Twitter today. I don't know what anybody's reaction is to this episode. Is the world burning on Twitter right now?
That's a good question. I haven't looked either.
Well, I think it was burning from the beginning of Kenobi. We can jump down that rabbit hole if we want to, but it was burning from the beginning.
If it's Disney
Kenobi.
Star Wars, it's going to burn from the beginning at this point. I mean, that's just de
on
rigueur.
Twitter, you mean, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I'll say, like, obviously I know you guys are rolling. I'm in here late. I apologize. But to not be on Twitter today and not read anything, and to be able to just watch this episode and still not read anybody else's reaction, it's kind of a refreshing feeling. I'm
Yeah.
just coming fresh into the podcast after watching it. I have my own opinion. I haven't read any hot takes yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean the most kind of scathing stuff that I've seen is just like people getting really whipped up about choices by characters that don't make sense, right? So it's the last episode when Obi-Wan goes to the laser checkpoint, and like reviewers on YouTube are spending 15 minutes, screaming about like, why didn't he just go around the lasers? Why did what?
It's like, it's a fair point.
Why, yeah, but why didn't General Grievous? Why didn't General Grievous have his droids open fire on Obi-Wan Kenobi when he dropped into the middle of his base in episode 3? Because that would end the movie. And it's just, characters just do dumb things. Why did they walk right into the ray shields in episode 3 and then go, ray shields, we're smarter than this? Because just they're not perfect. So I always ignore that kind of stuff. But then you get to like episode 4 of Obi-Wan, and he's got Leia underneath the trench coat.
And that one.
He's walking through the hangar with 4 legs, and I'm like, what? Come on!
They might as well have put her on his shoulders and have him in the trench coat like that, peeking out.
This is just a new mistake. Put her in a crate, right, and then push a crate to get onto a ship, like in the trench coat. Come on!
I love it. I love it. Now, we asked Stephen what a Star Wars topic he was excited about or interested in or whatever. Scott, I'm going to go to you next. Whether it's Celebration and all the announcements, or whether it's just let's go more into Kenobi. What's something that's standing out to you right now where you're like, hey, this is what I'm either looking forward to, or wow, I'm kind of nervous about this?
You know what I've spent a lot of my time doing lately is I've been catching up on the Marvel comics finally.
Cool.
Really?
And I'm an old school Marvel Star Wars fan. I'm an old school Marvel Star Wars guy in a way that probably sickens a lot of people. I've got multiple sets of the original series. I'm actually buying a beater set right now to put in my spinner rack so I can have a spinner rack that is nothing but old Marvel Star Wars, unbagged and all that other stuff. But so I've been catching up on and what I will say of the books is they're probably the best written as a whole that they've ever been. Not counting the old school, but ever since the Reva, ever since the return to Marvel, as a whole, I think every book kind of shines in its own way right now. I'm just about a third of the way through the War of the Bounty Hunter storyline. It's a big crossover event, which they've never really done anything on that scale with the books. Every book seems to be able to interact with the big event and yet retain its own identity, which is not always the case with these types of events. A lot of times, in fact, what frustrates a lot of writers is they wind up having to conform to somebody else's plot points and somebody else's storylines. But everybody has been able to kind of keep their books. The most fascinating thing to me and exciting thing to me is Vader books. When they do a Vader series, and it's not just I'm a big Vader fan, but it's that there seems to be a built-in limit because on the one hand, the bad guy can't win all the time. On the other hand, if Vader loses consistently, then you've diminished him as a villain. You've diminished him as a threat. You've rendered him ineffective. But somehow, and I think this is the 3rd volume of Vader they're on, or at least the 2nd volume with a 3rd major creative team, somehow they continue to find ways to make the series interesting and to put him kind of on the brink, but never actually dealing the big L to him. They keep him vital. They keep him dangerous. And they're able to sustain the series of a bad villain during a very dark period. I've got to give them all a lot of credit for the work that they're doing right now.
So he's no longer a Disney princess then?
No, and that was a big beef of mine when they first bought him. They're doing, it's the Disney Christmas parade, and Vader's too, he can't get on the ride, and he's on the carousel, and his ear, what is the Mickey bar melts and falls off, and he gets mad, and it's like, and I kept telling people because everybody said, when they made the buyout, they said, is Leia the new Disney princess? No, Vader's the new Disney princess. Watch him. And people are telling me you're full of baloney, and I'm going, no, I go to the store and they're Valentines and it's little cartoon Vaders. And I don't want little cartoon Vaders. I want Vader that will choke you. I want the Vader that walked through the village in episode 3 of Obi-Wan.
Correct.
That's a dangerous guy. That's a scary guy. That's Vader, not the little cartoony, cutesy, going to play with the kids. Jeffrey Brown
Scott,
Vader.
that whole sequence, kind of going back to episode 3 there, I loved the Michael Myers-esque nature of how Vader like kind of always catches up. It was very much like
Jason.
that. And I, it's like, you run away from the guy and then just they walk and they manage to catch up and still surprise you at the next corner and still emerging from the darkness. I mean, quite literally like going down the Halloween road where, they call Michael Myers the Shape. That's kind of like the same deal. Like Darth Vader is like the Shape in the shadows. And he just always caught up. It was very cool. Since Rogue One, they have been restoring the terror of Darth Vader. It's beautiful.
And the thing they've nailed this time around is the voice. Oh my goodness. They're using, I guess, the respeecher thing.
Yeah, they got it better this time. Rogue One was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he just didn't sound like he had his breath. He's he's 90.
Yeah.
And that's gonna happen. But using the respeecher has really restored that, because the voice is a big part of Vader. It's just a big part of Vader. And if it's not James Earl Jones and he doesn't sound right, it's a little diminished.
So saith the radio host man. So
correct.
The voice matters.
Hey, DDoc. So the question was thrown out to both of them. I'll go to you now. Leaving all those things, what's standing out to you? What's preeminent right in front of you that you think, wow, this is what I want to talk about when it comes to Star Wars right now?
Other than Kenobi?
Oh no, it can be Kenobi. This is an open forum tonight. We can actually focus in on the first 4 episodes, or we can go into whatever topic you want. It's open.
I mean, I gotta say, I think the aesthetic of the Andor trailer looked amazing. I think the production looks amazing on that. It's funny because I'm 5 episodes in on Stranger Things, and I am watching Kenobi right now. And I can't help but to think, I'm just like, why does it look like they put more money into production of Stranger Things than the Obi-Wan Kenobi show sometimes? That's like it's just a random thought I wanted to bring up. If we're
I had a similar thought. I had the similar thought watching Stranger Things.
They filmed Stranger Things before Kenobi, didn't they? Wasn't it before, and then it took a while for them to get the post-production done? Yeah, that's what I thought. It was done. Was it done before COVID, or was it done during COVID time frame?
I certainly don't know, but I get that feeling. It's sort of this weird tension that I'm always feeling, which is that I like simplicity. I like trying to keep things simple, and even just like the sets of Obi-Wan just kind of sitting in his cave and going out to wherever he's carving up that giant sand whale. It's all very practical. It's all very practical. And it does appear a little bit on like the cheap side. But then there are just some settings, particularly when they go to that city planet to get Leia from the first smuggling ring, where I don't know, you just look around and you're like, yeah, I think Stranger Things is actually putting a little bit more money into the Upside Down than they are this. But that's certainly a very minor complaint, and not something that bothers me.
Do you think? I know Giancarlo Esposito, when he found out he was going to be in Mandalorian, Favreau said, well, the money's really going into the show and not the characters, right? We're not paying you guys. We're paying you guys scale because we're throwing the money at the show and the effects and everything else. Do you think with having a Ewan McGregor and some of these other larger names in this, that maybe some of the money is going to the characters on this? And
what larger names besides Ewan?
All these people are in Game of Thrones. All these people are in. Are they now more pricey than what they want to spend on effects or background or anything like that?
I think you've got a situation where people want to be in a Star Wars. People want to say on their resume they were in a Star Wars, and so they don't mind working for a little less. And I think what they did to appease McGregor is he's got an EP credit, so he's getting a different piece of the show. So I think that's probably what they did to kind of make things a little more financially viable for him on this situation, and just give you another end another payment end on the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree though. It does look a little cheaper. The Inquisitor costumes in the very first episode, I went, wow, that kind of looks Halloween costumey. I'm a little.
Could we actually talk about like the Inquisitors just in general? So because this is one of the things that going into the show I had worries, not because I don't like Inquisitors. I've actually come to really enjoy them. Flying helicopter blades, not so much, but I like what they function as and what they do in this part of the Star Wars story. The Empire needs Jedi hunters, and eventually, they're the cleanup crew, and eventually the Emperor and Vader are going to wipe them off the board. They are means to an end for this time period, but they'll be gone by A New Hope. So they're going to be seeing live action. They come into the show, and immediately in the trailers, I kind of saw a couple red flags in just design where I was like, these feel a little bit cheesy. The fifth brother, and then the Grand Inquisitor. I was looking at this depiction of the Grand Inquisitor. And I was like, something about this doesn't feel right. And then they roll down the ship. They get out in episode 1, and I think immediately they were like mustache twirling villains. And is this just like a side effect of being around the force sensitive side of Star Wars? Because one of my buddies, and I think you guys all know this about Star Wars fans, there are Star Wars fans who are like the Jedi Sith people. They're here for the Holy War and the Force. And then there are the people who are like, I'm a bounty hunter. I'm here for the bounty hunters and the scoundrels, and that's my Star Wars. So those are the Mandalorian people, and then you have the Skywalker story people. And this is in the Skywalker story territory.
Yes.
And so we're getting mustache twirling villains, and it's just very different. Do you think they're handling it well, Inquisitors?
I think it depends on how Reva's story plays out, and I'll tell you at the end of the day, because she is the only one that is different from that, and she has her moments of it, but she also has she has a much broader range as far as what she does with her character. The other guys are just, they go from angry to rage and then back down to anger.
I will get what I deserve.
Yeah. And but she plays a little differently. She plays a little broader, a little more range. My theories on that, if we can throw that out there, are that she is a youngling from that episode, that Order 66 part at the beginning of the first episode, and she's trying to work her way up to get close to Vader to take him out. That's what I think's going on there.
No inside job here.
Yeah. But
she keeps talking about how everything was taken from me. Like she like most characters who we've seen get involved with the Empire from the Republic days, they resent their captors. They are part of the Empire, but they are resentful of the situation that they're in. Did anybody play Jedi Fallen Order on the latest Star Wars game?
Yep.
So you've got one of the head Inquisitors. Her name is Trilla, and she's hunting the Jedi character. And she's deeply traumatized person. She became an Inquisitor after her Jedi master, under torture, being tortured, sold her out to the Empire and told her, gave up her location to the Imps. And the Empire comes and picks up this youngling, and they torture her too. And they're basically like, your master sold you out. Nobody loves you. Nobody ever cared for you. Turn to the dark side. And she does. And so you kind of find out by the end of the Jedi Fallen Order story that like this person became an Inquisitor because they felt betrayed by the failure of the Jedi Order to keep them safe. That
clearly
the Jedi
this
Order
doesn't work.
Yeah, that this was a failure, and they betrayed my trust as a child. And it seems like Reva is the same character. She's the same kind of person. Her life was taken away from her because the Jedi failed to do their job. And she doesn't hate the Empire. She hates the Jedi for messing everything up.
I think you'll see a reversal on that, though. I really do. And maybe I'm wrong on that.
Well,
it will also be interesting, though. Huh?
Go ahead.
No, it will also be interesting, though, because there's this talk, and there's not been any official announcement, but there've been rumors that they're going to do a season 2, and with that, the rumor goes that they've expunged her death scene at the end of the first season, and so that she will survive into season 2.
Oh, well, that's big news if we're not getting a miniseries.
True. Yeah, if it's true, but I don't know. It's a rumor.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want all Star Wars to be good. I don't know. I mean, good to me, good to everybody. I want people to enjoy Star Wars. I know they went into this saying we're making a 6-part mini series. That's it. So kind of a one-shot thing. I can live with that as long as it's a good quality item, and I've enjoyed the story so far. I do get nervous when they go, "Oh, it's been so well received. We're going to go ahead and make another one." Are they planning out well enough in advance for that? Because let's face it, they've been planning on a Kenobi movie for the past 6-7 years, and they've moved into this, right? So that does make me a little nervous. And to throw out more things on Reva, and this wasn't my thought. I'm just going to tell you, I stole it. I was listening to people talk about things, and I was listening to a podcast, and somebody threw out the idea of, and I kind of agree with you, Scott, on where I think Reva's from, but somebody threw out the idea of, since we don't have a Mara Jade in any storylines right now, could Reva be an Emperor's Hand figure? Meaning she's the only one who said Anakin Skywalker is still alive. The other Inquisitors just call him Lord Vader. She's the one who said who all knows that Anakin's alive besides Ben, the Emperor, right? So do the other Inquisitors know that? Because they've not said that. They just call him Lord Vader.
This is the thing about that. I mean, she says that to Obi-Wan to draw a reaction out of him and to bait him. But we don't know two things. How the Inquisitors talk to one another about Vader, which I don't think they do at all. And we don't know if Vader knows she knows. And that and Scott, you would know this from some of your readings, I think, but when people find out in Imperial circles who Vader really is, they die. He does not allow people to know his identity. He kills numerous characters who get too close to him in that way. So I don't think Vader knows she knows, which I think is important. And that could be her death sentence by the end of this, if she's plays too fast and loose with that information.
You know, there's also, though, with that, Vader, the Emperor is it's particularly in the comics, the Emperor is very much a gamesman. And he's very much playing, just like in episode 1, you know, he's always playing different people against each other, and he's always manipulating different things. It's very possible he's let her know something like that without telling Vader, just to have somebody on the back burner in case something happens to Vader.
Sith competition. That's what they do.
Sith competition. That's a Cheap Trick song.
Hey, so DDoc, you've got the freshest view of this. Looking at it coming out, you just came out of it. What were your initial thoughts of this episode 4 that I saw earlier this morning?
Personally, I really enjoyed it. I thought we got to see a decent amount of Obi-Wan lightsaber action in it, which I really enjoyed. I thought the aesthetics of, the name of the tower in the middle of the
water. We'll just call it Fortress Inquisitors.
There you go.
Yeah, Inquisitors. Yeah, I remember that from Fallen Order game. I thought it was awesome. I mean, I just enjoy seeing this transition of Ewan McGregor almost into the original trilogy design of the Empire. Seeing his interaction with stormtroopers, I still kind of pinch myself when I'm watching that, because you're used to seeing him standing next to clone troopers.
Yeah.
So I personally overall enjoyed the episode. I mean, I got filled up at the end of it. That's how I know that I was lost emotionally in it. I have a daughter. The moment at the end, it kind of got me all
holding her
up,
hand.
You know? Yeah. That's why I said to my wife, I was grabbing the laptop and I was like, I need to take like 2 minutes. I'm pretty teary-eyed right now. I was like, I can't go in there with it was just a special moment. And to me, that was just like, yep, this show is doing its job for me. I haven't read internet reaction. That's just mine. So I enjoyed it.
Who liked the back to tank scene in the beginning, and that, he was either feeling like connected to Vader as he was also, doing his own healing and meditation, and they were kind of feeling one another through the Force, or he was just sort of working through his general trauma that he has about Anakin. That was a great scene, and that mirror between them both suffering in that way. I'm here for that. It was so
that,
many wonderful things.
That intercut, and it was almost as if that's why Vader dragged him through there in the first place. Kind of, let me give you a little taste of what you gave me, just a little taste of what you gave me.
Totally.
Yes, I agree. Do you guys mind if I read someone's message that they sent to me? I had a few, well, like I said, I had a handful of messages.
You're going to get into the beefing?
Oh, I'm just some different ones. So the first one,
read them out.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, I can beef on this episode a little bit.
So real quick, this one's easy. This one's easy. So Willie Harms, who's just a great follower, and we got to meet him at the ICCC. He sent me a message and said, how insane is it that the writers did not take the opportunity to put Obi-Wan in a stormtrooper's outfit in this episode? Because here he is beating up stormtroopers, doing things to stormtroopers. He could have easily put on a stormtrooper's outfit, just like we've seen Luke, Han, Kanan Jarrus. The list goes on. And that, well, and for us selfish people, could have been a great Hasbro 6-inch character of Obi-Wan.
And then people
where would he have put Leia?
But then people would have complained that it was just too heavy-handed of a copy of episode 4. I mean, like,
retread.
There's no way to win here. And first of all, this rescue mission was a retread, and I think they could have done better than a retread. Like, this is completely uncharted territory for Star Wars. We did not need to do a reverse echo of episode 4, saving Leia from a fortress. It was just, come on. He even does the thing where he's in the hallway and he does the sound distraction to lead the stormtroopers away. It's an episode 4 callback. But it just would have.
Don't forget the 3PO where could he be shot that they of the comm link.
Of the comm link.
Oh yeah, I mean, totally.
I laughed out loud when they did that shot because I was like, that is the exact shot in episode 4 when the stormtroopers burst into the room.
I'm glad you called that. So it's just like, no, you can't win though with people sometimes, because if he had done like the stormtrooper thing too, people would have taken issue with that in some way. And I get it. Like, there's just kind of no way to win here, but that's why I'm in favor of not doing retreads like this, and maybe not doing a jailbreak episode. So
some of my notes, because I was stupid enough to take notes while watching it. One was throwbacks to the prequels with the Naboo breather in the water, and then throwback to A New Hope with the Force noise and the the comm link. Right there, I was like, whoa! I feel like they're merging both trilogies into this, which is, I guess, what they should do. So you're right. There is no winning. I mean, because even though somebody like me would have been like, oh, that's pretty sweet, because now maybe hopefully I can have a character next to Han and Luke and and have the helmet come off and it's Obi-Wan. But
it would have been a very toyetic plot.
Yes. So Ryan Massengale, and God love him, Mass has been a co-host on the show many times. Ryan sends me a text before we go on. And I'll just read through, I'll buzz through it, and then I'm going to let you guys just throw down at it because it's kind of fun. Kenobi is really well done, but I don't like it. It now makes no sense why Leia wasn't trained to be a Jedi in A New Hope. She knows she has Force ability, and she knows Jedi exist, and she has connections with Ben. Anakin has not brought balance to the Force. Now the Empire has the huge upper hand. The rule of 2 is out the window. When Vader and the Emperor are dying in Return of the Jedi, you feel like the good guys won. Now it's all torn to bleep because I could say shit, but I'm not going to. But I just did.
You just did.
Because there are Inquisitors all over the place. I really wish they had left the original trilogy and begun with completely new characters and stories when the Skywalkers were done. And I read it.
There's so much wrong with that, though.
I know. I was like, no. But I thought you three could have fun with it. Go ahead.
So just 2 things I picked out before I forget what they were. The first thing he mentioned, like saying that this series leads to like Leia should now have been trained as a Jedi because she knows she's Force sensitive. What are you watching? That doesn't happen. There's no Force sensitivity reference at all in this show to Leia's ability, and it's not even displayed. She doesn't show Force sensitivity.
Yeah, she's not 11.
This is not a thing that happens in the show. The second thing, the thing about the Inquisitors and the rule of 2, I get this complaint, and I do actually understand, because I think it's very, very important that general audience Star Wars fans always feel respected and able to keep up with the canon. When you make Star Wars too complicated, it makes your dad's generation of fandom feel like they're not real fans anymore because they don't get it. And I think that they need to pump the brakes on all things that make people feel like they're behind. And Inquisitors are one of those things, because even the average Star Wars fan knows, people who just see the movies one time and then kind of never again, 2 Sith at a time, the rule of 2, there's a master and an apprentice. That's kind of common knowledge. But the Inquisitors do not break that rule. And that's important to understand. The Inquisitors are Jedi hunters who are Force sensitive, recycled. They are not apprentices to Palpatine. They are not apprentices to Vader. In fact, they are used by the Emperor to keep Vader on his toes at all times, because Vader is expendable, and Vader attempts numerous times in this time period to kill Palpatine and usurp him. The Inquisitors are there to remind him, I don't need you. If you die, Vader, I don't need you, because there's other people. So
the farm league.
The rule of 2 is not broken. All these Inquisitors are jockeying with one another for future apprenticeship. So,
but the fact that you have to explain that is the problem that you reference.
That's the problem. It's complicated.
Yeah, no, but it's a very good point. It's the same point. I was having this discussion the other day, and John Jackson Miller got dragged into a Facebook discussion that we were having, and because a buddy of mine sent me a note, and he'd read Kenobi, and he said, why didn't they make this? And why? I just learned that they've declared this book Legends. How could they have done that? And both John Jackson Miller and I jumped in with the exact same point, which was the reason they had to declare everything Legends is because when they went to make a movie, The Force Awakens, they couldn't just say, okay, so we're going to do this movie, and we expect to sell millions and millions and millions of tickets. Well, here's what you got to know. It's 30 years in the future. Chewie's dead. He got hit by a moon. Don't worry about it. No big deal. Leia had 3 kids. One of them's already dead. He went to the dark side. Don't worry about that. We're good. We're still rolling here. Oh, and by the way, Luke and Mara Jade. You know who Mara Jade is? All right. Well, you can't do that. And
insane.
Yeah. The EU had gotten to where it was inaccessible to large audiences. And the problem is, and I think social media exacerbates that. We think that we're all Pauline Kael. You know, the apocryphal story of Pauline Kael, where she, declares she doesn't know anybody who voted for Nixon. How could he have won when he won 49 states?
Yeah.
And, we tend to think everybody around us is the world around us, and that everybody who thinks like we do, that hangs around with us, that's it. And so, all of these people who bought the novels, and look, I bought the novels. They're there. But I recognize also, because I look at numbers, I look at data, and I know that these books don't sell 1 million copies each. They don't sell 1 million copies each. And when you've got a movie, like Force Awakens, I mean, somebody quickly divide $15 into 2 billion for me. And, that's the number of tickets you're talking about. So it's a vastly larger audience that you're trying to appeal to. Why would the first thing you do be, oh, by the way, guys, you're not really welcome here, but we're going to tell this story and expect you to come anyway? It's not going to happen. So it's a very fair point. The other thing I want to hit in that text is, she knows the Jedi exist. Did she not know the Jedi exist? I mean, years ago, you served my father in the Clone Wars. What did she think the Clone Wars were? I don't understand that point. She knows the Jedi exist. Clearly, she knows the Jedi exist.
And I think, looking at it, I think he was discussing when she was showing the Force powers, was when Reva tells her, "You're strong," or I feel some strength or something in you, like that. That, to me, that's not showing force ability. It's just a strong-willed person.
I took that as we're finally seeing that Leia. I was trying to figure out when we were going to see that, the Imperious Leia, because in the first couple episodes we saw a little girl Leia who's already a rebel. And Leia in episode 4 to me is, she's a rebel, but she's still a princess. And I wasn't seeing a princess the first couple episodes. And then we saw the princess. We saw royalty there. You know, you're going to wait on me. You're going to do things my way. You're going to do what I want you to do.
My father, you can't do this to me.
Yeah.
I'm a senator's daughter.
Yeah. That's Leia.
DDoc,
Yeah.
did you have any thoughts on Mass's ramblings?
I'm sure I love Mass too. I miss him being on here. I would love to have. He needs to come on, I guess, as a guest or as his regular host show, because I mean he's so much fun to have on here.
Well, he needs to defend his thesis at this point.
Agreed.
Yes, exactly. But I do think he's probably looking at the scene where Reva was trying to intimidate her Kylo Ren style, and Leia kind of just brushed it off so nonchalantly, and Reva's just like, "Oh, you're strong," you know, like. And I guess Mass probably read that as, you know, how could Leia not know that she's force sensitive if she has this Inquisitor trying to tap into her and she's just eating it basically. I could kind of see that, but yeah, I don't know. This whole storyline doesn't bother my original trilogy storyline at all, because you know, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with new Star Wars stories. I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's memories in Star Wars are different, and they zero in on different things. With Leia, I was in a conversation with one of my best friends in Star Wars fandom, and he was like, Leia cannot be this close to the Inquisitors and in this much close proximity to Vader. They would sense, you know, her Skywalker blood. And I was like, hey, buddy, do you remember in episode 4, the original Star Wars, where Vader boards Leia's ship and she mouths off to him in his face? They've been interacting for years.
He interrogates her.
Yeah, he interrogates her. And also when they meet in the beginning of episode 4, it's not the first time they've met. You can tell from the tone of their conversations. He's like, oh, it's you again. And he's like, I got you this time, which is like, they have this like long relationship, and he can't sense the family blood in her, because your thoughts betray you, your feelings betray you. If she doesn't have thoughts to hide, she doesn't know. So there are some Jedi who have the Force Echo ability, and they have that in the Jedi Fallen Order game, where like you can touch an object and feel its history.
Quinlan
but
Voss.
only a couple of people do that. Vader's not one of those people. So, you know, it's just people's memories are very selective, and I get it. I forget things all the time. Really,
he's not even as old as us, Scott, and he forgets stuff all the time.
No, I forget Star Wars things, like really obvious stuff all the time, and I complain, and then someone calls me out. I'm like, oh shoot, oh yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah, you know, Stephen, you were complaining about not complaining, but you were talking about the Inquisitors and how they shouldn't be. I'll say this: if you're going to do it, that's probably the way to do it, because if you remember, in the old EU, we had Dark Jedi.
Yep.
Who basically are the exact same thing as the Inquisitor. They just called them Dark Jedi. And they were a little more, I mean, first off, to call them Dark Jedi just really, it doesn't do a lot for erasing the legacy of the Jedi from the galaxy.
Yeah.
What they're supposed to be doing. So, I mean, if you're going to do it, I think they're on a better path now with that than they were originally.
Yeah. Did you play the Jedi Academy games? Kyle Katarn and all that stuff?
I played Dark Forces, and I read the Bill Dietz books. You know, he did those 3 graphic story albums, I guess you would call them.
We've always had this precedent for, you know, acolytes within the Empire, dark side cultists and worshipers, and they've just formalized it and condensed like all of that really nebulous 90s and 2000s canon into something pretty darn tangible. And they're going to be wiped out here in the next couple of years in the timeline.
So
and that's okay.
I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I was nervous about with the Disney takeover and going this direction with all these new things we're bringing out was that some of the really cool parts of the EU would never be seen or heard from again. But I think slowly but surely, I feel like they're wrapping in the greatest hits of these things. I mean, Thrawn, for example, and you know, different things like that. That they're bringing those back in through Disney, but in a format that fits with the stories they're trying to tell. And we see it all the time, little touch points of either characters or storylines or ships or planets that were in the EU. Were like, oh man, that's gone, right? That's completely gone. But I feel like, is it just me, or do you guys get the same feeling that they're taking some of the better things, maybe they're tweaking them a little bit, but I feel like they're bringing that stuff back in now because, as Kathleen Kennedy said a long time ago, we don't have years of books and comics and things to look
Mhm.
at to build these stories. Well, you kind of did, and all you have to do is pick through the ones that were the best ones. But I do start seeing those, especially in the Kenobi series, in some of the other things that they've done in, Rebels and all that. Do you
Yeah,
guys
I
see
mean,
that?
I've never made friends in fandom by saying this. It's something I go into in the conclusion of my book, How the Force Can Fix the World, a little bit, which is that no one can take anything away from you that you are not willing to give up. And when it comes to people's love of old Star Wars stories, when it comes to canon, when it comes to the Phantom Menace, and I remember older fans around me, talking about how George Lucas raped my childhood and stuff like that. You can't. No one can take things away from you that you guard in your heart and that you love. It's not gone unless you light fire to it. I just really, really reject that point of view, and I think it goes to a societal sickness, and I think you see this particularly with young progressives today, is the need to have every feeling and view that they have validated at all times. I cannot be happy in my existence, and my feelings are not being respected unless you validate the way that I'm interpreting a situation. And that rears its head in this space as well, that unless storytellers validate things that you feel and stories from your past, then it's gone. It's just not true. All of these stories are like part of me, and they are in my heart, but they're not gone. I just think canon is just, it's more important in a sense. You got to have order in the universe.
Before Scott or DDoc jumps in, I just got to say, I have a daughter who's 19, getting ready to be 20. The word validate has become almost, I look, I understand. I want to be there and support anybody who's going through any kind of trouble or issue and all that. But if it's to validate that you just like oat milk in your coffee compared to almond milk in your coffee, I mean, it's just, validate has become kind of a 4-letter word in my house. So I get it. When you said that word, I was like, oh gosh, just hearing that, it makes I'm just starting to realize that, that kind of is out there in society right
Scott,
now.
you looked like you had feels about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, where I'll kind of veer off from you here is because I was an EU guy, and I understood. I mean, the night that we found out that Disney had bought Star Wars, the first thing I said to the friends I was with, I said, there goes the EU. It's gone. It's going to go away. And they said, why? And I said, again, what I said earlier, which was, they're not going to expect everybody to know all this stuff when they make a new movie. But I think what bothers you is, it's kind of like you have a dog and the dog dies and you're sad that the dog died, and people go, well, don't worry about it. You remember him. You got all your memories of him. You got old pictures of him. Yeah, but he's still gone, and nothing new will ever happen with him again because he's dead. So a lot of it is you're a part of this story, you're invested in this story, and then the story was immediately brought to a screeching halt. And it's not so much that the old stories are gone that people are upset about. It's the fact that story will not continue in the way that it had continued. It's why, for me, I mean, I had to deal with it a long time ago, because when they first launched EU, they were making a joke out of a little Marvel Star Wars, which was my, that and the Brian Daley trilogy are my Star Wars. And so I early on had to go, all right, yeah, I get it. You guys don't think, and eventually they integrated all that stuff back into canon, that, all of it that worked anyway. And so, I went along with the flow, because I just realized at this point, head canon is important. You're not going to tell me that Vader and Valance the Hunter didn't have a big fight over a river or a lake of acid while they were trying to get to that one guy who fled Yavin, during the Death Star thing. I'm sorry, that happened for me, because that's one of my stories. I love it. So, I mean, I get why people are upset. Now, would I ever spend a dime on a billboard to bring something back like that? No, because Disney's not here to feed your fantasies per se. They're here to make money.
Yeah.
And they have to kind of blend.
How dare you say that?
I know. They have to blend the magic with the ability to actually make the stockholders happy, of which I used to be one.
You know, I just see like so many ways in which, you know, like you mentioned, Nick, you know, they've put a lot of stuff back into the main vein of Star Wars. I think the top two, of course, are Thrawn and then Dark Troopers, which we see in The Mandalorian. Like, these are the things that very much defined my experience with the EU was Dark Trooper themed video games and having to fight them both as like Kyle Katarn and all this stuff. Like, that was just a huge part of it. I am one of those people who I will throw up my hands and admit I didn't read the EU books. I didn't. I grew up in the prequel era. I grew up on the Jedi Apprentice books.
Yep.
I grew up on the legends that Qui-Gon Jinn had an apprentice before Obi-Wan named Xanatos. And Xanatos came from a rich, opulent, wealthy family and eventually went to go back and join them. And he became a political terrorist and a dark Jedi. And he bombs the Jedi Temple, kills this kid named Bruck, who was like the bully in the Jedi Temple who always harassed Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then he eventually kills himself in front of Qui-Gon Jinn just to haunt him for the rest of his days. Xanatos is still real to me. Like, he is still real. I get it. I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. But by the way, on EU stuff, I spent the weekend hanging out with Timothy Zahn. So I was at AwesomeCon in DC. I was tabling for How the Force Can Fix the World, and we shared a table. It was nice. I get to my table in the morning on the conference room floor, and I set up, and then I look at the table next to me, you know, that I'm connected to, and I lift up the tarp, and it's all Thrawn books, and I went, no. And yeah, we, 10 hours sitting next to each other. I try not to talk to him too much because I don't want to be weird, but
I was going to say a lot of us, he'd be running after the first couple hours.
Got to talk enough. And it was really cool.
That was awesome.
I got a chance to meet him at ICCC. DDoc was going to be there, but his baby was on the way and he couldn't make it with us, but we had a table there in a booth, and we turned the corner and there's Timothy Zahn. And I didn't have a Zahn book with me, although I have them all right here. And so I just went to a table and I was like, buying that one here, Mr. Zahn. And he was as nice as could be. You're right. He talked to all of us who were there, took pictures with us, signed things. Great guy. And he was just very open to talk about anything.
He was very, very patient. And he spoke to people all day with kindness and patience. It was very cool. I got 2 books from him while I was there because I wanted my daughter's copies, because I do audiobooks and she wants to read the Thrawn books herself, the new Thrawn books. So got to do those. But I did learn a hard lesson, which is that when you're selling a Star Wars nonfiction book connected to Timothy Zahn's table, good luck. When I got in the morning, I thought I was going to have the best day of sales of my life. Wrong. Worst. It was a miserable conferencing selling experience, but it was a very novel experience. So it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
That's when we were at Celebration in Orlando in 2017, we stood in line because you guys know the story. I've told it on this podcast before about I bought 2 copies of Heir to the Empire when it first came out, kind of by mistake. And I had one that I'd never touched, never read. I wrapped the dust jacket in Mylar and I brought that to him at Star Wars Celebration Orlando, which he had to show off to everybody because, it's immaculate. It had never been opened. And I got him to sign that. And then, after we sat and we chatted about it, and he showed everybody the book and told all these stories about the origin of the book. And then Delilah Dawson was next to him. And she literally, as I stepped away from him, she literally looked at me and went, "Do you want my autograph?"
Oh.
Yeah, of course I do. But I guess that was kind of how her day was going, being right next to him.
Yeah. Nope. I get it completely. Being at cons, if you're at a table, Stephen, you're exactly right. We were at a table. We had all kinds of Rule of the Galaxy gear with us, but they put us in a room where no one was buying things. They put us in the podcast room. So we had all this gear, and the only people in there were the podcasters. So we were like, well, great. There's, a bunch of shirts and hats sitting on our table. Stephen, I do know you had mentioned you need to break out. If you need to go, let us know. And
home stretch for me here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So DDoc, you didn't really grow up with the EU either, right? You were more the prequels and then what's going on today, right? So being a part of our podcast has been playing catch up with a lot of these crazy things that we're rambling about.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm an audiobook person as well, and the Plagueis one is the one that hit me the most so far, as far as EU. I mean, I just thought that was incredible, and that was just one of the first Star Wars books where I'm just like, they have to make just a movie that tells that story alone, because it would be incredible. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it's a pretty dark story too, with what happens with, Sidious and everything, and what he does to his own family, and it's incredible, honestly. Like, I think, see, I'm such a huge Game of Thrones book fan that I felt like that was the first Star Wars book that tapped into a different level of darkness as far as the Sith go. And like, I'm not like the most dark person, but I like hearing about it in books, and that was incredible. I mean, it's funny because, like, as we're on the topic, I gotta suggest a YouTube video to watch that this guy created, that I happened to watch last night. It's called Star Wars Rebels: A Prophecy of Hope. It's a 1-hour show that this guy made on his YouTube about the creation of Rebels and Clone Wars being stopped. And it reminds me, as we're talking about fandom and EU and what fans want to be in Star Wars and what not to be, it was about Filoni and everybody transitioning from Disney saying, all right, Clone Wars is stopped. We need a new show. We want to go back to the original trilogy now. Here's Rebels. You need to create this. You have X amount of time. Go. And that's what it's like, a documentary.
And apparently X amount of money as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper looking show.
Yeah,
exactly. They get into so much detail about why they did that and how they decided to say, I know I'm changing topic right now, but
that sounds really cool. Is it like sourced and researched properly? Like
this guy, I gotta look at his name because I took a picture of.
I know I'm gonna watch it.
His name is Artor, Artorr.
Sounds
legit.
Well
produced. It's well produced. Very well produced, but he was saying that, because I watched Rebels and I'm like, this looks so different than Clone Wars, and it came after it. I don't understand. Well, number one, like Scott said, budget was lower. Two, they said they wanted to go back to Ralph McQuarrie's designs, how they had thinner lightsabers,
shorter wings on the ties. Yeah.
Yeah. They even talked about how the fact that they wanted to go back to the original trilogy, a lot of shots in Rebels come from almost as if the camera's on a tripod filming the scenes. And they just pointed out so much, because I'm in the process of watching Rebels. I didn't watch this whole thing because I am halfway through the 3rd season of Rebels right now. It's the only piece of Star Wars I haven't watched. So I stopped myself because I know things that happen in the show, but I didn't want to spoil it by seeing it. I've heard what happens in the show. I wanted to talk about that.
Which maybe should bring us to the Grand Inquisitor, which is probably like chief among my gripes with my fellow fans who know better than this. And I cannot escape all of these memes all over Facebook and Twitter of people being angry about Disney being like, you think you like the Grand Inquisitor and Rebels, no, we're going to run him through just so we can elevate this character and Moses Ingram. Like, guys, the canon's canon. All right. Disney's invested in this. Disney's invested very much in Rebels. Rebels is the foundation of Ahsoka. The Grand Inquisitor is not dead. He is somewhere nursing his wound. So like, people's bitterness just overrides their ability to think clearly on some of this stuff. Just because
it's when you want to, you know what I call that? And I know this is probably going to set somebody off somewhere. You know what I call that? I call that picking the fridge. Because when Indiana Jones,
oh gosh, yes.
When Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, everybody had to go after a nuke in the fridge. Everybody had to go after it. And it's like, guys, it's supposed to be a 1950s sci-fi movie. If they'd made the movie then, that would have been a thing that was in it. You have just gone through 3 previous movies where a guy drinks from a cup and immediately ages 100 years and falls into dust.
Right.
In Last Crusade, there is a shot where Indy is out on the tank and there's a gun sticking out, and somehow he tries to drop down and can't, because in a way that is physically impossible. His man purse has gotten wrapped around the can. It's not physically possible. Nobody stood up and went, well, this movie sucks because he could not have gotten that wrapped around the tank like that. God smites everybody who's a Nazi.
Indy drinks the blood and actually goes crazy in Temple of Doom. Like,
his guy gets his heart ripped out
and still is screaming.
Yeah, and still screaming. And we sat through all of that, but then the fridge makes this the worst movie ever made.
Yeah, and it gets recycled over and over again. The criticism.
Yes, and that's the thing is you enter the echo chamber and you have to hate this movie. So let's find that thing that we can all hate about it. And it doesn't make any sense to ignore everything else and then settle on this one thing that we've got to hate because we want to hate something. And that's all. Which is
now it's Lasergate with Obi-Wan. It's Lasergate in episode 3, and it's him wearing a cloak. Like, if I have to hear from one more person about how he looks like a Jedi wandering on the streets, I get it. He looked like a Jedi in episode 4 wandering into Mos Eisley with Luke Skywalker. Oh,
we have to hear that the writers didn't know that Padme was Leia's mother, and how does Obi-Wan not know that when he said, "Oh, how I wish I was your father"? I mean, people were complaining about that one line when he was basically just saying, "You're such a great kid.
You're a great kid."
I mean, learn how they're explaining it there. I don't know.
It's been unbearable, and I don't know if it's strictly just because of some Star Wars accounts that I'm a fan of who are quote tweeting people who have 5 followers and are just making dumb statements. That's what's been frustrating to me over the last 2 ever since this show has started. My Star Wars Twitter feed has just been in shambles, and it's like I like to scroll through Twitter and read people's opinions and stuff like that, but it's like, stop giving them a stage for stupid takes on certain things. It's like, I mean, I thought the Lasergate thing too, it was funny, but I mean, even sometimes Han Solo would just be like, screw it, and blast the freaking, control panel just to get a door open. This
is why I think this is why personal responsibility plays a big part in managing your own happiness, because when I am trying to enjoy my life, I actually do unfollow people who don't bring value to my feed. I unfollow people who actually stink things up. Because I am here to have a good time, and I'm not just talking about Star Wars. I'm talking about my existence. Now I got
to check and see if Steven's unfollowed me here.
So it's just like and this is another reason, and this will be my parting thought of why you should buy How the Force Can Fix the World, because How the Force Can Fix the World is like my testament to like Star Wars virtues for how you should actually live your life on a day-to-day basis, taking tips from Star Wars into actionable life advice. And some of those things, such as, like I'm angry all the time. Well, have you considered like figuring out like what are you intaking by choice versus things that are outside of your control? You have to deal with your boss, your brother, the woman you married. That was all you. But the people who you follow on Twitter, you don't have to follow these people, and you don't have to get on and be angry that people are unhappy. The only people left for my Star Wars fandom Twitter feed are the people who are like kind of always going, yay.
I like that.
Because and they're uncritical, I think, sometimes when they should maybe put on their thinking caps. But I'm here to have a good time. So guys, may the Force be with you.
Thanks for being on, and everybody,
thank you for having me.
Go read his book. It's a great book. I know I've read it. Scott's read it. I'll let DDoc have my copy. He can read it, I guess, or we can get it and buy one.
If you're an audiobook guy,
to the audiobook.
I was going to say, if you're an audiobook guy,
so it was
incredible. If you're an audiobook guy like Steven did the audiobook. So
yes, he did.
I painted my house listening to it.
You're mute, Steven. But anyway, hey. See you later. He was out. He was mute. Yeah. Let you know what? Before we head, I had put down a bunch of notes on this episode, and I just want to touch on because a couple of them were really cool.
Because I got a beef on this episode. So yeah, do it.
So one, we finally get to see O'Shea Jackson as Roken.
He's great.
The role is great. The
I thought he
character's
was
great.
terrific.
To hear that he had a wife who had Jedi sensitivities, and that's why the Inquisitors. I thought great storyline.
Yep.
I like this secret network called the Path. I'm kind of digging this. I want to know more about it.
Yep.
I again, like I said in my notes, I kept saying, man, that felt like a Rogue One scene. That felt like an Episode 4 scene. That felt like a prequel scene. So I kind of like it because I feel like they're trying to make everybody who likes maybe one of those things see something that speaks to them. But we get to the end. And yes, spoilers for everyone. You know, if you're listening to us, you should have already watched Kenobi.
Yes.
But gosh, to see those Jedis in tombs in the bottom of the Fortress Inquisitoris, was Plo Koon in there? Did I see Plo Koon in one of them?
Did
I
you?
could have sworn he was one of the first ones on the right.
I thought they showed him as a peripheral view right when he walked in. Right when he walked in, right away, I'm just like, oh my God, that's Plo Koon. It reminded me of like Jurassic Park with the little mosquito, you know?
Yeah, his Aunt Amber.
Weird.
Yeah.
And then we had a youngling in there. We had also Tara Sinube, and Coleman Kaj.
Trebor? Oh.
Maybe it was Coleman Trebor.
I thought he's a pilot.
It's
Never
Coleman,
mind. Trebor's
Coleman
a pilot.
Kaj, which is Jack Coleman or Jack something backwards. I don't know. But Book of Alfie sent me those. But I just thought that was such a cool scene to see that. What is it they're doing? Because we saw in a previous episode where they had youngling helmets and lightsabers in a case behind where the Inquisitors were talking. And now we have these encased tombs of Jedi down at the bottom of this place. So those are just some things that stood out to me. Yeah. So go ahead, Scott.
The action was weird in this episode. And I don't know if anybody else got that or not, but it was just like there's the scene where Obi-Wan's walking down the hall and he's got the seeker droid on the one side and behind him he's got the stormtroopers, and he'll turn around and they'll shoot at him and he'll block them, and then he'll turn back around and they'll wait for him to address the seeker.
Right.
And then he'll turn back around and they'll try to kill him again, and the seeker will wait while he addresses the stormtrooper. And I just thought there was a lot of that going on in the action. I didn't get it when they're trying to escape and they're in the docking bay. And the alarms are going off and everything, and there's stormtroopers and everybody's everywhere with these alarms going off, but nobody's running. Everybody's walking everywhere, and I'm going, dude, the alarms are going off. Why aren't you? So it was like there was a lot I enjoyed about the episode, but I did have a beef with just the way the action flowed was odd to me. It was almost like they didn't have time to block it. You know, we didn't, you know, how they block action out and say, okay, this is going to happen here, you know, essentially choreography, but not even that intense blocking, you know, where an actor is going to be at any moment. And it just didn't feel like they had spent a lot of time doing that on this show. And it really kind of took me out of it a few times. Fortunately, the production design was so great. So episode 4, it brought me back into it. But a lot of times the action just really pushed me out of the show.
I feel like that goes back to DDoc's earlier mentions. Sometimes it looks a little TV-ish, like just, hey, we get some standing, extras over here, right? Like instead of they're in action doing what you're talking about. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there's so much. Look, I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love him to death, and I'm so excited we have this show. So we'll nitpick these little things.
Yes,
I love the where it's going. I'm perfectly happy with it.
I didn't say it raped my childhood. It was disconcerting to watch the action done in a way that just didn't seem up to the standard that had been set for the show to this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Go ahead, DDoc.
What is Krennic's line when everything is blowing up on Scarif? When he looks at everyone and is just like, well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. What Scott was talking about, you know, like, let's go. All right.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't give you, I really enjoyed that episode actually, which I don't know reaction to it yet, but I thought exact same thing in the hallway. I thought it was a little bit of slow moving, like, hey, you shoot at me, I'll block it like real quick. I don't know. Like I did kind of feel that. I think one thing that has helped and hurt Star Wars is we can see how incredible a lightsaber battle can be with next gen technology.
Yeah,
When
that's
we
true.
had that Darth Vader hallway scene, when we've had the Luke Skywalker scene, you know, you want to see Ewan McGregor do that scene. You know, you want to see him have his moment, which still
He
might
might,
come in
yeah,
this
still
show,
might.
you know.
Right.
Mhm.
But, you know, I don't know. When it comes to budget, I'm like, this is Star Wars. This is like one of the biggest things in filmmaking. And that's what I can't wrap my head around. It's like if my buddy asked me, like, if you had one complaint about it, what would it be? I would just say, I can tell it's a TV set sometimes, and that it just doesn't look like a movie. I wish it looked like a movie sometimes. And that's like my one
Yep.
complaint I would have, because I'm
Yep.
watching Stranger Things, and don't get me wrong, Stranger Things is huge, but Star Wars is huge. So that's why I'm like, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is a huge show. I don't understand why sometimes it looks like a TV show. That's what I'll say. I
No,
don't know
that's very fair.
what goes into that production.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I tell you what, we've hit a little bit of everything, and we've gone a little extra because I know, Scott, you have to get up early, so I want to make sure you get some sleepy night time.
I appreciate that.
Any closing thoughts from you? I know we covered a ton of stuff. Stephen was great. Is there anything on your mind fresh that we haven't talked about you want to hit before we break camp here?
No, I just want to say thank you. I always thank you for inviting me on. I love being on with you. You know that. And thank you for putting Stephen and me together, because I've known Stephen for a few years. And we've interacted on Twitter, and we've swapped emails. And when he was with a company that was booking guests on talk shows, I would book guests. I don't book guests, in all honesty. I like to go and talk for 3 hours. And I don't do guests, but when Stephen would come with a guest, I would say, all right, if Stephen's coming to me with a guest, I'm going to take his guest. Because I know it's going to be interesting and it's going to be important. And I had a lot of good guests because of that, but normally I don't do a lot of guests. So Stephen and I have interacted that way. We've never had an actual physical conversation. Like, we've never been on the same broadcast or podcast together. So I appreciate you doing that, because Stephen's a good guy.
Well, you know, I usually tag you in with those two crazy ones of Adam and Glosson, Adam Bray and Steve Glosson. And I thought, you know, you and I had discussed that before, how you enjoyed what Stephen did. And I thought,
yeah,
well, let's make this happen and see how it goes. And I thought you two really rocked it. So I
enjoy Stephen. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, good. We enjoy having you here. So you saying thanks to us is crazy, because we thank you very much for always coming on and sharing your wealth and knowledge. And every time I talk to you, it makes me want to go back and read my Marvel Star Wars comics again, because those are that's like you. I grew up with that. You know, those 3 years between movies, that was my life, were those comic books right there in the Han Solo trilogy and things like that. So
yes.
So thank you again. We will have you on again very soon, and I'll probably tag you in with those other knuckleheads and let you get them all worked up, because you do that sometimes.
I like to do that. Yes. Yes.
DDoc, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yes, my dog did start barking, so hopefully you can't hear it in the mic. But if there's one thing I love more than Star Wars, it's building Star Wars stuff. And I've been watching Scott's background be built behind him on Twitter for a while. And this is the first podcast that he's been our guest where I have seen the completed project. For our YouTube watchers, you must look at it, because that is freaking impressive, man. It really is an awesome display. It's perfect.
Thank you, sir.
I gotta say,
it is, as I said earlier, and I guess you weren't there for that, but my wife basically said, I think before we went on, my wife basically said, when you redo the room, you need to do it exactly how you want it. And she wouldn't let me settle for anything. So, you know, and she bought me the desk, and she bought the mic, and she bought the mixer, and, you know, we picked out this stuff together. And then I got crazy with the tape lights and the LEDs. And so I can, you know, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's next for us, DDoc. We'll do that soon enough, now that we've learned.
I know. That's why I set up my background with old floating shelves I had from my old house, and I'm not happy with it, because I love building stuff, and I'm like, you know, it is cool, don't get me wrong, but yours is freaking awesome. Like, so
it's been a fun adventure.
I love your display boxes with the Kenner card pieces on the background and just all that stuff. So I had to comment on that while you're on the show. It's awesome.
I appreciate that, man.
If you're listening, guys, you should definitely check it out.
Yes, you should. Yes, you should. And this is coming
so.
from a guy who knows how to build stuff, because this
That's
guy right
true.
here, DDoc, knows what he's doing. Okay.
Yep.
So Thursday is my birthday. I received my first birthday gift. It is from my mother, who for every birthday for the past probably 30 years has gotten me something R2D2 related. That is a big coffee mug right there. You are too awesome. Thank you, Mom. Thanks, Dad, both of you. And then some garage sailing the other day. I love going to garage sales because you never know what you're going to find. But
Yep.
it's cool to see your name of your podcast on a glass. Rule the Galaxy with Kylo Ren right
That is
there.
cool.
That will be staying right here and not getting any drinks in it because it's too cool to have right there.
Yeah,
So,
that's a pint glass.
yep.
Nice.
Nice little pint.
See, I don't know bar
Galaxy and the
words. I had to
sequels.
learn that.
Yeah. Oh, I don't drink, so I don't know. But yes, it's a pint glass.
Gotcha.
Anyway, you guys are the best. You guys rock. Brent, Alfie, Nick Shesky, they all had tons of stuff going on tonight, so I get it. Alfie's got to be up at work at like 1 a.m. Next week again, we will have Jessica, the Duchess of Dark Saber Light, leading the show. Okairo, right? Or Okiro? Okairo, right?
Yep. Okairo.
Okairo. He will be on the show. The regular co-host will be with them. It's going to be it's going to be a banger. It's going to be lit. I can tell you that. And as always, follow us at Rule the Galaxy SW on Twitter, at Rule the Galaxy SW on Instagram, Rule the Galaxy Podcast on TikTok, which is blowing up thanks to DDoc. Just Rule the Galaxy on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want any of our cool Rule the Galaxy gear with that logo, if you're watching on YouTube, shirts, hats, sweatshirts, go to Etsy.com, type in Rule the Galaxy, all caps, all one word, no spaces, Rule the Galaxy, buy that stuff there. Thanks to these guys, thanks to Stephen Kent, and until next week, may the Force be